Good evening and welcome to the Modise Network. Tonight, we take a look at how Nelson Mandela Bay Metro was ransacked with author Dr. Crispian Olver as political parties fight for control. Later on, the Zondo Commission of Inquiry has revealed damning allegations of corruption against the senior Zuma administration officials, and Professor Sipho Siepe takes the story forward and looks at the performance of President Ramaphosa. The Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs says that 93% of municipalities in the country are in varying degrees of dysfunctionality. And that may help explain why service delivery protests are a daily occurrence, but that does not explain why political parties work so hard to be in charge of these municipalities. The Nelson Mandela Bay Metro recently changed mayors, removing Athol Trollip of DA and replacing him with Mongameli Bobani of the UDM. Mayor Bobani ascended the position with the help of the ANC and other political parties. But Nelson Mandela Bay Metro is a very interesting case, for it is the subject of a book written by Dr. Crispian Olver, and the book is titled How to Steal a City, The Battle for the Nelson Mandela Bay. He is an experienced public sector bureaucrat who has done a lot of work on environmental matters in the past. But what he saw in Nelson Mandela Bay shocked him into action. He joins me now to tell us a bit more about his experiences there, and I'm also encouraging you to be part of our conversation using the hashtag the Modise Network. Dr. Olver, pleasure to catch up with you.
Good afternoon, Tim, and thank you for having me on your show.
And I've said something there in the intro saying that 93% or thereabouts of different municipalities are said to be in varying degrees of dysfunctionality. This probably does not come as a surprise to you, but of course a major irritation to a lot of residents throughout the country who every day or regularly have to go out on service delivery protests. Are you surprised at that statistic? It comes from the Department of Cooperative Governance itself.
You know, I think, if you're going to look at the facts in local government, you need to be frank about it. And certainly when Pravin Gordhan was minister, as part of the build-up to his Back to Basics campaign, he took a detailed look at all the municipalities. And he said there's a third that are doing okay, there's a middle third that are, under stress, and there's a third, he had a lovely term, in the ICU. Absolute basket cases, failing their citizens, sewerage in the streets.
And of course, they don't just fail because they fail or because of funding. There are other things at play here, which we will use your experience in Nelson Mandela Bay as a point of departure. Now, let's talk about some of the political actors there as we work our way back into this 93% of dysfunctionality that we referred to. The new mayor of Port Elizabeth or Nelson Mandela Bay, Mr. Bobani, is threatening to fire the city manager there, Johan Mettler. Are you surprised at that?
Well, I understand there was a hastily convened council meeting today, and they've already suspended him. And I had a brief look at the memorandum that they submitted to council. I think they are ultra vires on a number of points. The charges they've put are not credible. There's a protection clause in the municipal legislation which says that before you can act on any senior official, you've got to cause a proper independent investigation to be done. They haven't done that yet. And then they also have to give the city manager a chance to reply, and they have to give him an ability to say why he should not be suspended. So they've pushed all of that aside, and I think that makes them very vulnerable to a legal challenge.
So Mayor Bobani ascended that position recently, as we said, and Athol Trollip was ousted. And the way the whole story was put together the whole plot to oust Athol Trollip. What did you make of it and the culmination? Because it was not the first attempt, this, but it took some time and ultimately it happened.
Yeah, well, you know, Port Elizabeth, like a number of the other big metros in South Africa, is governed by a coalition. There's no outright winner. And in Port Elizabeth, the largest party, the DA, only got 47% of the vote. And then the ANC, which is the next largest party, got 41% of the vote. So both parties have to, you know, be constantly juggling different smaller parties to try and cobble together a ruling coalition. That does make for an unstable situation. So, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong in principle with coalitions changing over the course of a term of office, over the 5-year term of municipalities. I'm a little bit worried. I mean, look, I can't talk with authority on the DA. I know there have been charges laid against them that they don't consult with coalition partners, that they've been very heavy-handed, that they've been racist in some of their appointments. I mean, there may or may not be water in that. You know, I haven't followed the DA's process in Nelson Mandela Bay.
Let me take you back
but I am a bit worried.
Sure. Let me take you back to the time when you had to go to Nelson Mandela Bay to intervene, sent by the then Minister of Cooperative Governance, Pravin Gordhan. You went there to help correct things there, right? There was a majority party in charge. It was not a coalition government, but yet that party, the ANC, was struggling to run the affairs of the metro. What you discovered shocked you into action and ultimately into writing the book that you did. What did you find? How distressed was Nelson Mandela Bay then?
Well, Nelson Mandela Bay had been in the headlines for various reasons. There'd been a huge fraud uncovered in their bus rapid transit system. And advocate Vusi Pikoli, who previously headed the NPA, went in and uncovered a whole lot of irregularities around how that IPTS, as it was called, how that IPTS money was spent. And the ANC was particularly alarmed by the results of the 2014 election. They saw that for the first time, ANC support in the metro had fallen below 50%. And I think that really acted as a spur to them saying, look, we're going to lose this metro unless we do something radical. So they put a team in there. This was led by Pravin Gordhan. He was minister at the time. We completely replaced the mayor, the mayoral committee. There was a new chief whip appointed. And then we started the process of cleaning up the administration, which I had a very active role in. And, I went through each position in the metro and started to work out where, how was the rot being aided and abetted by all these people in the administration. And I finally realized this was an entirely captured city. The city manager was on their payroll, the chief financial officer, the head of corporate services, the head of legal, the head of supply chain, the head of IT. They had key people in infrastructure and engineering. They had completely captured human settlements where there were huge contracts to be won. And almost every functional area of the metro had a rent-seeking or a corrupt process underway that was sucking money out of the municipality and into the hands of a syndicate that had sort of grafted itself onto the ANC. This is essentially a criminal syndicate with some links into organized crime in the northern areas. And it's what I would call a vast rent-seeking operation.
But when you say a syndicate, is it a formally structured syndicate that's outside politics, or is it a syndicate that operates within the ANC?
It's a good question. And, there have been academics that have been debating this question of, when you're dealing with state capture by a group of people, by a faction that is determined to loot and extract resources out of a situation, what you usually find is that that faction has seized control of the party and seized control of the administration and the levers of the administration. And in seizing control of the party, I asked a lot of the former ANC REC members, were they discussing this sort of stuff? Was this being planned inside the REC at the time? And they said, no, these things weren't brought to us. There was a small cabal clustered around the regional secretary and some of the in-crowd, working with this entrepreneur, this private businessman called Farid Fakir. And between them, they were basically cooking up the deals and then forcing them through the municipality, cajoling the mayor into signing them off, pressurizing the city manager to process the memos. So, I use the term syndicate because I think it's misleading to say, well, it was the ANC being the syndicate. I think the ANC itself had been captured by a group of interests that were solely interested in what they could extract out of the system.
I'm talking to Dr. Crispian Olver, who is telling us about the discoveries, shocking discoveries he made when he went to Nelson Mandela Bay to try and help improve the situation there. And this became the subject of his book, How to Steal a City. He's with us here on the Modise Network. Would also like to hear from you on Twitter, the hashtag the Modise Network.